Do you ever wish there was a way to capture your thoughts, ideas, or inspirations and have a method to turn those into a social post automatically? If you're like me, most of your ideas usually happen when you are away from your computer and you're not on your phone. And then when you get back and it's time to write something for social media, all of those amazing ideas and inspirations are gone. And that was an issue for me. And what I wanted to do was create a way where I could talk to my phone using my voice and record whatever idea was in my head and use email to send that and have that email go somewhere in the cloud and have AI interpret it and come back with a social post. And that's just what I did. And I created what I call an AI delegation machine. And this one in particular is what I'm calling my social post inbox. And the whole purpose here is to take an idea that I have, capture it in email, because it's really easy to talk into your phone and use the voice to text feature of your phone, send it somewhere, and then have AI process that. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that and how I built a system to do that for myself. You can copy this exact process and make it yours. So let's see how it works. So first of all, my framework here is I need a way where I can just record an email into my phone. And that email then goes into an automation, which then takes the text and content of that email and I send it to AI. And I have a whole prompt that turns that into a social post. And then from that process there, I then create a file in Google Drive and I update my database, and it's all done automatically. And the way that I do this is I use three things in my AI delegation system. I use Google Drive, I use Airtable, and I use Make or Zapier. And then on top of that, I use AI as the backbone to create all the content. So here's what the steps look like. First of all, I'm using Make to act as my starting point, and I use a trigger in Make called a mail hook, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in just a moment. And I upload that all into Airtable. I create a new record in Airtable. And from that point, I can do the next step, which is send it to OpenAI. And I have what's called an assistant in OpenAI. Now, this is not ChatGPT. This is the API side of OpenAI. So you have to have an OpenAI API account to do this. And they have a feature called an assistant. In this case, I have an assistant waiting for an input, and it will take that input, and that assistant has a prompt built into it, and that prompt will create a social post out of it. And then when that's done, I create a Google Docs. That's created in my Google Drive account. And then after that's done, I update the same record in Airtable, so it's easy for me to find later on. So let's go take a look at what this looks like in real life. So first of all, I have the whole scenario here laid out in Make, and it's just a pretty simple automation. Now, the things that you're going to need in order to make this work is you're going to need an Airtable account, an account on make.com. You're going to need a paid Google Workspace account. And that's really important because the way that Make works with Google is if you have a Workspace account, this is really easy for Make to log in and access your Google Drive account. You could probably do the same thing in Zapier, but I've since transitioned over and I'm using Google Workspace for all of my automations like this because I intend to use them for a long time. So just being upfront, you will need a Google Workspace account. You can do this with a free account in Airtable. You'll need an account in make.com, and you'll also need an API account for OpenAI so you can create an assistant on OpenAI. The first thing in this step is a webhook, and it's a very particular kind of webhook called a custom mail hook. And what this basically is, it's a cryptic email address in the cloud hosted by make.com. And this just listens for an email to get sent to this address. When I'm ready to record my email, I'll talk to my phone or write it out, but I will send it to this email address. And that's how this whole process starts. I have this email address on a contact on my phone, so it's always easy to send an email. And step two is once this receives the email, it's going to update a table in Airtable. And what that looks like here is I have a table looks just like this. And the first one here is I just have an auto increment ID in case I need to have an ID for later. The next column is description. It is a short text description, single line text. And then email text is a long text. This is going to be the output from OpenAI that populates in this field. And this is also a long text field. And then this field right here is where I have the link to the file that I create in Google Drive. And then finally, I have the file ID for Google Drive, because if I ever need to move this file later, each file in Google Drive has a unique ID. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So I'm going ahead and I'm going to run this. And then over here, I'm going to take the email that I recorded earlier, and I'm going to send this in. So as soon as I click send, it's going to take a moment. And while this is listening for any email that comes in, you can see right there, we've got the email. It created the new record and Airtable. And you can see that right here, it's got the record and Airtable. It sent it up to OpenAI, and then it created a document in Google Docs, and then it updated the record in Airtable. And now I have an easy way where I can come back in and I can go through and edit this to make it sound a little bit more like me and align with my voice. Right here is the description. The description is based off of my subject line and a date stamp. My email text is the text of my original email. And right here is the social post that was created in OpenAI. And that was everything in this document. And over here is my link that goes right to the document I just opened. And then lastly here is a Google Drive file ID. So let's go back to make.com and see what this all looks like. So when I sent my email in, it found it, and you can see that there are a few things in the email that I can use in my automation. And the thing that I care about is the subject line. That's how I keep track of this when I do a lot of these. And then text is the actual body of the email right there. So those are the things that I can grab after I send my email to make.com. And then when I create my record in Airtable, here's what that looks like. So I've got my base defined, my table. And then here in the description, you'll see that I've chosen the subject from step 1 from the webhook. So that's my email subject. And I also put this line here is I wanted to capture the date and time of when I sent it. This feature here, which is basically right now, it's a timestamp for right now, and you can format it in a bunch of different ways. I've got it formatted so that way it looks really clean and it's easy to understand. And if you look at it over here in Airtable, this is what it looks like. Here's the subject line, and then I've got the time and date stamp, July 5th, 2024, 5 o'clock p.m. That's what time it is now. So that's a really easy way to keep track when you start doing a lot of these. The next part is email text. That's also updated right here in Airtable. So this is the email that I talked to myself in my phone earlier and captured whatever inspiration I had at that moment. So I've got all these. This is my first part that I capture in Airtable. So then I go to OpenAI and I have my connection already established. And then the role here is user. And what this means is that it's emulating the user, that's me in this case, and I'm going to send it the text that it received in the webhook, which was the text from the email. In OpenAI is the assistant is what is doing all the heavy lifting. And the assistant contains the prompt, which you'll be able to see. And the prompt has all the information about the context, the command, the style, tone of voice. And I also have the example of what I want the post to emulate. And the reason I like using the assistance feature in OpenAI is it's really easy to go and edit the prompt in the assistant and have that be your central location where you have the prompt. It can make minor tweaks, minor adjustments to it. And you can also easily update it as OpenAI comes out with new models just by editing the assistant. And I don't have to have any of the prompts loaded here in my automation. That's all I have to do in this part of the automation. And then the next part is once it goes up to OpenAI, I have another command here that says create a document in Google Drive. And right here, the name of the document is the description from Airtable. So what that means now is when it names the document, it's going to be the subject line for my email and the date stamp. And you can see right here, like, do you really need to learn AI? And here's the time and date stamp right there. And then in the content, it's the output from OpenAI. And what that looks like when you dig into it is, if you'll see up here, OpenAI, and then down here, content, and then text and value. So that's what I clicked on there, text, value. So here you can see step 3, content, text, and value. That's the full output from what this delivered. But that's all I needed in order to create this document. Moving on, the last step in my automation is I want to take this new information and I want to update the record in Airtable. And what I do here is I go back, and first of all, it's going to say if you're going to update a record, it wants to know the record ID. So that's mandatory that you have to have that in there. And what that looks like when you click into it is this ID right there. It usually starts with REC and it's a number like that. That's the record ID. I update the field I have in Airtable with the output of OpenAI. So I have the same content I have here. I also have an Airtable right there. And this is so you can use this in a future automation. So what I typically do is I'll go in and I'll make some edits to this document just because it's easier to make edits in a Google Doc or a large interface like this. I'll make whatever changes I have, and then I'll do copy and paste right into this area here. And then I'll use this for my updated social post so I can use that in a future automation. For example, if I want to automatically post this to one of my social accounts, I now have the updated post right here. And finally, you may have noticed that I did some other updates too, which is I add the Google Drive link. If you click here, there's all the details for the document that you create in Google Docs. And so there's one called Web View Link, and that is the same as when you share a document with somebody. That's what's right here. So I update that in Airtable, and I also update the document ID. And this is critical because if you ever want to do anything later with that document, like move it or find it, this is like a universal identifier within Google Drive and something that Make and also Zapier understand. So that document ID, I always capture it every time. And you can do the same thing with document ID and folder ID. Now, when I have this updated G Drive link here, so I don't have to go search around through my folder structure in Google Drive anymore. Everything is right here in Airtable. And that's what I use Airtable for, is I can now look at the email I sent. I can look at the text from the email. I can see the social post. I can go right here and get a link to the document, make my edits, copy and paste, come right back here, update this, and then I can send this to another automation that will take this and post it right in social media. So this is a really easy way to take all of your ideas, go straight from what's in your mind, record your thoughts in an email, send it to an automation at make.com. That will send it right up to OpenAI, where you have an assistant that does all the heavy lifting, all the creative writing, and you can tweak this however you want, any type of post you want, and then it's going to update your database and create a Google Doc, and it's going to be really easy to work on later. When you have your moments of inspiration, you have a way to capture them. Then later on, you can come back to your computer, and it's really easy to do editing, and you're a completely different state of mind when you do editing. It's really easy to take this type of content and make the changes necessary to align with your voice and your style, and then you can post it. So now you made it really easy, removed all the frustration, so you no longer have to just do everything in one moment, and everything's captured, it's organized, and it's simple. And that is what an AI delegation system looks like. If this is something that is useful to you, let me know in the comments what else you'd like to see and any other feedback.